Now on for a personal view of the search for God from mystic Irina Tweedie.
I was born in Russia in 1907. And I married my first husband, who was in the banking business. When he died, I married my second husband. He was a Navy officer. Unfortunately, he also died in 1954. I was absolutely desperate because I loved him very much. And I had nothing else left in life. I really wanted to die myself. And then one day, a friend took me to a library. It was the library of the Theosophical Society. I was brought up in academical circles, and I suddenly saw this lovely library. And I thought, oh, well, maybe I will be able to read again. Maybe I will be able to live again. So I didn't have much desire to live. So I began to read. And I found many interesting things of which I didn't know before. I read that this life is not the only one, that we lived before. And this life is only an interval, a parenthesis of our human existence.
Being guarded. Yeah, looks like it. And, you know,
The mystic, Irina Tweedie, talks of the importance of letting go of the self in order to reach God. She also believes there is no necessary connection between Sufism and Islam.
The Sufi says that the only evil in a human being is the little self. It is called in Arabic nafs. The training of the human being to the spiritual life is to help the human being to get rid of the ego. Two masters cannot live in one heart, said my teacher. Either the little self or that with capital T, which you can call God if you like. So the first thing the teacher will do, he will try to help you to get rid of this important, all-important I, the me, my family, my conditioning, and other things. I came there expecting wonderful teachings. I came with a pencil and with a notebook, but as soon as he noticed that I wanted to write something down, he began to speak about the price of butter or the problems on the Chinese frontier. All what he was trying to do is to erase, to send paper down the me, the I, to surrender myself to the light within. Sufis said, we are made in the image of God. We all have the light inside. We don't learn spiritually. We have to unlearn what we have learned in this world. So the training of the human being, according to the Sufis, is really to get rid of the ego. And that's my teacher proceeded to do, and this is a very painful process. This is the surrender to the light within yourself. One doesn't surrender to the teacher, actually. One surrenders to oneself, somewhere, to your soul. Sufis are mystics. It is very difficult to define what mysticism is. It is neither religion nor it is a philosophy. I would say it is a way of life. The way of life of the highest moral standards, the highest ethics, if I may say so. It is difficult even to live it completely and properly. I'll give you an example. If I buy more chairs than I need, I am stealing. If I don't return the library book in time, I am stealing. If I eat more than I need, I am stealing. We are not allowed to dress different from other human beings because then we create a barrier between us and others. We live in this world surrounded by all temptations of the world. And when the world is closing tightly against us or around us, we have all the temptations which we have to overcome. Sufis have been always persecuted since the time immemorable. They have been considered heretics, they have been expelled, they have been killed off and disowned by Islam. Why are they called Islamic mystics? Is because they had the flowering period at that time in the Middle Ages in the Middle East. And somehow they are associated with Islam. Also, you see, Sufis wandered a lot in all countries. And it is natural, if you live a long time in a country, you use the language of the country, you use the images of the country, they use the prayers of the country. For instance, in our line of Sufism, we say mantra. But mantra is really zikr, it's the same thing. It's just the repetition of the name of God.
Was the interest of Sufism generated by Idris Shah and these people? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's the detritus that was washed up on the beach. The interest in Islam came because the people were completely in a trap. I mean, they were all in the trap of the growth of monetarism, of what we now have as a complete monetary system of debt. And it began in the 60s and reached its climax in 1968 with the Zionist taking control of the universities. Now, in that process, God put into the picture psychotropic drugs. So some people blew their heads off. So they said, maybe there's more than a bank account and death. And that began the interest in spiritual ways.
Sufism is a term that arose actually from the deviation, if you like, of the full Islamic model. It was a corrective movement, so it cannot be regarded in isolation with the full reality and the full dimensions, if you like, of Islam. You can't strip. It's like what we did to a great extent to Christianity. It has become only feelings and emotions without any container. You can't have a yoke without a shell. It's the heart of Islam. What do I say to those who would like to follow me as a sheikh? A person who has discovered the basis of truth within himself and has then moved on to discover the relationship of this basic, if you like, fundamental knowledge to his environment. It very much differs from age to age and from place to place and from person to person. So you find sheikhs like successful, if you like, cooks, a chef. someone who really knows how to prepare a meal that gives you full nourishment, and knows also like a doctor. Now, there are different doctors who specialize in different areas of sicknesses or prevention or whatever. So every sheikh, in a way, outwardly is different. He may only have a certain type of follower. There are sheikhs who have been more recluses, very fortunate ones those are, than, if you like, too much in the public. There were sheikhs who led nations. There were sheikhs who created nations. The Sunusis in Libya, they created a nation out of highwaymen. And after 3 or 4 generations, they degenerated. So in my particular case, my own, if you like, personality is to share whatever I have attained, whatever I know, in a usable fashion, in the hope that everybody will be a sheikh. The problem is to save ourselves from the tyranny of our own selves, let alone afflicting tyranny upon others. What do we mean by real love? It is a state, it's an inward state of the heart that has no outer constraints. It is the prelude of what we all call an open heart. It is the process of the beginning of creation. Creation began because of this thing called love. Allah says, I was a hidden treasure and I wanted to be known, so I created. I loved to be known, so I created. So the source of creation is based on love, and we constantly want that state in our hearts. Unless there is love and passion, there can be no turning. The heart will not turn. So love is that state which connects us to another dimension of existence. The Sufi literature and poetry often talks about drink and drunkenness and so on. If love is there for its own sake, by its own sake, in its own way, then you have that pure, if you like, state of intoxication, which has no side effects. It is that what we strive for. In fact, even those who go for the bottle are seeking the spirit. And that's why they try to uncork it from a bottle, whereas we bottle it within ourselves and we don't let it happen because we are afraid, in fact, of this practice. We have not been trained in it.
Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
سمع الله لمن حمده.
ربنا ولك الحمد.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام
Sufism is to discover yourself and be yourself and get on with life in its most natural way and live your life fully and joyfully and know, because you will come to know that there is behind it another process, another dimension. After the so-called death, there is purer and another realm which you will experience in this life. So arrival for a Sufi is that personal experiential recognition of the meaning of death and the knowledge that it really is just an experience of shedding the body, and that's it. So Sufism is the process of discovery of the processes of the self and the reality that's behind it. It's the discovery of God. But it starts with you because you contain all of realities, menial ones and higher ones.
Islam is submission. So you get the new kind of lackeys of the Egyptian government who would say Islam means peace. Don't worry, we won't invade Israel. But Islam doesn't mean peace. It means submission to this reality that God is the Lord of the universe. And so that is the fundamental act of the Muslim, which is his prayer. His prayer encompasses the old Judaic worship, and it encompasses the Christian worship, and it adds another dimension, because the Jews bow to pray, the Christians stand to pray, and our prayers standing and bowing and then prostration, putting the head on the ground. And this putting the head on the ground is the symbolic and actual experience of submission to Allah. This is what it means. If one is to talk about the relationship between the inner and the outer, between spiritual development as an inward thing, a deep, secret thing, and the outward, which is the political, any illusion that they're separate and can be separated would lead one astray. Because even in the deepest meditation, in the deepest reflection, and the deepest invocation of Allah, there is a going between the image and form, which is outwardness, and disappearance of consciousness, which is inwardness. But what you have to understand is that this totality, this Islam with its inwardness, is based on the fact that law is not a passive thing that imposes itself on ignorant people who break the law by not knowing who they are and what they're doing. With Islam, people choose to be lawful, and they choose to be just. It's in this setting that you can talk about inwardness. The modern world is in deep crisis. The financial system has collapsed. It does not work. The usury, the taking interest on lent money has enslaved all the world, including the so-called industrial countries. The people in it are all the victims of an actual outward crisis. But that outward crisis is motivated by inward things of greed and desire for power, so that modern man is completely helpless. he has no power. He's totally helpless. Democracy means that you cannot do anything. So the Muslim who wishes inward illumination realizes he has to change this. Usury must be abolished. The first act of a Sufi was his consciousness that usury must be abolished. That's his first spiritual act. How else can he say his prayer? We have no escape from the political to be spiritually developed. I'd go further than saying that Sufism is like some part of Islam or the completion of it or the heart of it. I'd go even further. I'd say that a whole Islam makes someone a Sufi. So you haven't got an Islam until you have this. But equally, you cannot have any sort of inward spirituality unless you are utterly, totally involved in politics. So you could say it's psychopolitics, that you cannot change the society unless you change the self, which is, as Quran says, unless you change the meaning, unless you change the hearts, Allah will not change the people. You have to recognize that everybody is on a path, because everyone, it says in Quran, if they ask you, where are you going? You say, I only know I've come from Allah and I'm going to Allah. And this is their path. So some say there are as many paths as there are people. And again, this is a thing that I've noticed among very wise men of real knowledge, is that they appreciate someone's spirituality in their being, whatever their intellectual frame is. Because there are many people of a correct intellectual frame and their behavior is not acceptable, or their politics are not acceptable.
There is no end to striving, and yet we want peace and rest and security and certainty, which is not attainable. No matter how far we go, we still find this thing that gives us centrality or inner, if you like, stability is elusive. Knowledge is about that, because that attribute of utter peace is a divine attribute. It is God. Peace belongs to that reality, and that reality is within us. So we have to discover that knowledge. We have to experience that reality, which is that knowledge. We must discover the essence of all these attributes within us.
What is the model of God? There is no model of God. Because, say, Quran says, Kulu Allahu Ahad, Allahu Samad, Lam Yalid wa lam yulad, wa lam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. There is no one like him. He cannot be compared to anything. He hasn't got a model. He is not a form.
It is the discovery of God within us, which is the knowledge that will save us from this continuous, unending, if you like, strive, which is barren. That's why you find people, if they do not have a spiritual dimension, they end up destitute, no matter how much they have attained in the endeavor that they have been pursuing. They will never be satisfied. So there is nothing wrong in endeavoring to excel in whatever field. But without this centrality, we will be destitute, as God promises us. If you do not discover me, you will discover nothing. That's what it means. If you do not adore me and love me and you are created for me, if you do not know this, then no matter what other pursuit or path you take, it's barren.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
Sufism's classical definition is that it is the journey of the slave to the king. In other words, it is the conscious path of a human being from the minute he comes into self-consciousness that he's alive and that he's going to die until he reaches the end. And one more thing. Some people die never knowing that they took this path of life.